My name is Emily Carter, and if someone had told me a year ago that I'd be sitting across from my ex-boyfriend at a cozy little cafe again, I would have laughed in disbelief. Life, however, has a strange sense of humor. It all started on a quiet Sunday afternoon. I was at my favorite coffee shop in Seattle, catching up on some freelance design work. The smell of roasted coffee beans and cinnamon filled the air, and the soft hum of conversations felt comforting. I was lost in my thoughts when my phone buzzed. The name flashing on the screen made my heart skip. Jason Miller. My ex. We hadn't spoken in almost a year since our breakup. It had been mutual, or so I told myself. We were young professionals, overwhelmed by work, trying to balance our lives and dreams. Things got messy, words were said, and we decided to part ways before resentment grew. His message was short. Hey Emily. I've been thinking, would you like to grab dinner sometime? I stared at the screen, unsure how to feel. Part of me wanted to ignore it. The other part, the one that missed his laugh, his way of making ordinary moments special, couldn't resist wondering what this meant. After hours of thinking, I typed back, sure. When? Jason replied almost instantly, Friday night. 7 p.m. The Olive Grove. The Olive Grove was our old spot, where we had our first date, where he once surprised me with flowers on a rainy day, and where I had cried into my pasta the night we ended things. The choice of that restaurant felt deliberate. My heart raced, but curiosity won. Friday arrived faster than expected. I stood before my mirror, wearing a simple blue dress, brushing my hair nervously. I wasn't trying to impress him, I told myself, just trying to look like I hadn't been thinking about this all week. When I arrived, Jason was already there. He looked different, more mature, calmer, his usual grin softened by something more genuine. He stood up as I approached, his eyes lighting up. Emily, he said, smiling, you look great. So do you, I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. The evening began with awkward laughter and polite conversation. We talked about work. He had started his own tech consulting firm, and I'd expanded my freelance business. But as the night went on, the awkwardness faded. It felt easy again, like coming home to something familiar. Between bites of pasta, Jason looked thoughtful. I know this might sound crazy, he said, but I've missed this. I've missed us. I didn't know what to say. The last time we talked about us, it ended in tears. I took a sip of water, buying time. Jason, I said finally, things were really hard back then. We were both trying to figure out our lives. I know, he nodded, and I take responsibility for how I handled things. I was impatient, stubborn. I didn't realize how much you did for me, and how much I took that for granted. His words hit something deep inside me. I remembered all those nights we stayed up late working side by side, him coding, me sketching designs, both chasing dreams we thought were too big. After dinner, we took a walk along the waterfront. The city lights reflected in the water, and the air was cool and crisp. We talked about everything, our families, our goals, and the things we learned apart. Jason told me about how he'd spent months in therapy, learning to communicate better, to handle stress without shutting people out. He looked at me and said, you were the reason I wanted to change. Losing you made me realize how much I needed to grow. I was quiet for a long time. It wasn't the kind of apology you expected to hear after so long, it was the kind that came from real reflection. When I finally spoke, I said, I've changed too. I had to learn how to be happy alone. How to stop defining myself by a relationship. And now, I like who I am. He smiled softly. That's exactly why I reached out. We ended the night with a hug, warm, genuine, and familiar. No promises, no dramatic declarations, just understanding. Over the next few weeks, we met a few more times. Sometimes for coffee, sometimes just a walk in the park. It wasn't about rekindling what we had, it was about seeing if we could build something new, healthier. One afternoon, Jason surprised me by helping at my art show. He showed up early, arranging prints, setting up frames, making sure every detail looked perfect. Watching him there, humble and supportive, I realized something, people really can change if they want to. Later, as we stood by my favorite painting, he said, you know, I'm not asking for another chance because I miss what we had. I'm asking because I believe in what we could have now. It wasn't a line, it was sincere. I took his hand gently. Let's take it slow, I said. He nodded. Slow sounds perfect. Months passed. We kept our promise. No rushing, no pretending everything was like before. We learned to talk honestly, to apologize without pride, to listen without defensiveness. And somewhere in that process, love found its way back, not as a spark from the past, but as a flame built on growth and respect. A year later, as I sat in the same cafe where it all began, Jason walked in with 2 coffees and that same soft smile. "You still like vanilla lattes, right?" he asked. I smiled. Always. We didn't need to define what we were anymore. Sometimes, the best kind of love story isn't about starting over, it's about coming back together when both people have finally learned how to be whole on their own. And as we clinked our cups together, I realized that maybe, just maybe, this time it was right.